Well, joining me is Madame Gandhi, an exceptionally articulate voice of dissent. Thank you for joining me. How are you doing?
I'm good. It's really good to see you.
It's good to see you again. Your latest video, Waiting for Me, is a visual treat. Tell me about the inspiration behind the song.
The song is about moving from repressive environments into free environments. It's about imagining the world we wish we lived in. It's about reflecting back to my audience some of society's most problematic norms. The fact that we consume media and medicine and and education without critically thinking about whether it genuinely serves us or whether it keeps us addicted. And so in my music video, I show my audience aspects of life that I find oppressive, and then I show my audience aspects of life that I find liberating.
And you really do speak through your songs. So, what is the impact that you want your work and your songs, such as this one, to have?
I want people to watch this music video and say, whose oppression might I be inadvertently contributing to by my choices, by my consumerism, by my behavior? How can I do better? How can I think better? How can I step into my own empathy? I want people to say, what does my own oppression look like? No matter who I am, no matter what gender I am, no matter what privilege I've been given. And then what does my liberation look like? What does it feel? And what does it feel like when I'm happy? What does it feel like when I'm joyful? What does it feel like when I feel comfortable? We don't allow for those emotions enough in society, whether it's in India or beyond.
And the kind of pop culture that is prevalent in India, what do you have to say about that? You are defined by what you consume. So I know you're very careful about what you consume. Where does Indian pop culture stand in that?
I love that question. I think my favorite aspects of Indian pop culture are the color, the joy, the dancing, the outfits, the love, the tenderness. But the aspects that I feel very critical of are perpetuations of stereotypes, mostly about women, about the fact that we need to be saved, about the fact that we're constantly trying to find a husband and get married, the fact that we, our career is secondary to our family life, that the older we get, the less desirable we are. There's so many problematic stereotypes about women that then perpetuate these myths and allow us to start believing them instead of combating them and rejecting them. I think that art, because we don't think twice about it and we consume it by flipping through the television or listening to the radio, it's seemingly innocuous, but it does cause a lot of harm, especially to young people when their gender identity and their understanding of power in the world is just being shaped for the first time. So we do need different kinds of art that shows what it looks like for us to step into our freedom, for us to own our own voice, for us to think differently about our own potential, and to eventually change the world.
Well, your art is very fluid in terms of genres that it transcends. It's also very measured in the kind of message that it sends out. For instance, you have a song, Bad Habits, which has such a hypnotic feel of, kind of like those tapes that sometimes some people listen to at night to reinforce some aspects, right? So tell me about that. Did you want to have that mystical quality to it?
I appreciate you saying that my music serves as mantra. That's the best thing you've said to me. I think music is so powerful because it is subliminal, because it does cater to our emotions. It caters to our psyche. We're listening to rhythms and we're dancing and we're moving, and we're not realizing that the lyrics themselves have so much potential to either oppress or to heal. And for that exact reason, I intentionally use my music as a way to allow my audience to step into the fullness of their own power, to do better, to think better, to feel better. And in Bad Habits, the lyrics are, all my bad habits I've got to go. And in fact, I'm wearing that t-shirt right now.
Oh, that's much. Yeah, I've seen that. Excellent.
And I have it's the merchandise that we sell at the show. And I actually have the lyrics on my arm for that exact reason. I want the lyrics to feel like a pact I'm making with myself to do better and to think better. And then specifically with Bad Habits, beyond just the fact that it's a good mantra, I think in any activist work, we all have to be careful about saying what's wrong externally. We have to be just as critical about saying what we can all each individually do better. And I'm a big proponent of making sure that I'm constantly going inward and saying where I can do better and where I have work to do, so that when I am making critical comments outward about what I'm seeing in the world, it has even more teeth to it because it has depth to it.
Well, you've so often said that you don't want to turn up to the sound of your own oppression, and I love that quote. A lot of Indian lyrics sometimes turn out to be problematic at best, misogynistic at worst, Punjabi pop music being a big example of that. Have you ever listened to this pop music? Do you think it's having an effect on society? Because all music does have an hypnotic effect at the end of the day.
Of course, I think that whatever lyrics are in the music have the potential to harm. And we as the consumer have the opportunity to decide what it is that we press mute on, to decide what channels we change, to decide the way we are going to consume music and allow it to be present in our lives. Because the more as a consumer we are educated and reject music that doesn't serve us or that contributes to the oppression of anybody in our community, the less it's made because it doesn't have an audience anymore. So that's really the movement that I'm trying to embody and lead. I think with Punjabi music specifically, it's not about Bhangra. It's not about any one genre. It's that in society, we normalize misogyny, and then that manifests itself across all arts, across culture, across the news, across so many different platforms that we consume. And so we as the consumer have to be more disciplined in saying, I won't tolerate this. I won't listen to this. I won't consume this unless it is not contributing to the oppression of anybody. Somebody else's joy and dancing and celebration shouldn't be at the expense of women, and it shouldn't be at the expense of anybody else.
But is there any Indian art that you like, be it films or music? Anything that you've appreciated?
I like all of it. I honestly like all of it. And that's why it's so difficult. And that's why I say I don't want to have to turn up, meaning I don't want to have to dance to the sound of my own oppression, because at the end of the day, I actually really enjoy Bollywood music. I really enjoy Bhangra music. I enjoy trap and hip hop and EDM. I even enjoy aspects of country music, of pop music. But no matter what, whenever I listen to it, so often the degree to which we perpetuate problematic stereotypes about women and girls is contributing to our psyche, is contributing to holding us back and reaching our fullest potential. And so I love all of this music. I just believe it can be better. And I believe that we as artists also need to start stepping into our power to use lyrics more intentionally and more thoughtfully.
Would you ever collaborate with the Indian film industry? Have you got any offers so far?
I don't know that I would, because by aspiring to something that's problematic, we are implicitly validating it. I do see the argument of being part of a platform that reaches so many people, so they're infiltrating change from the inside. But I'm more interested in designing systems from the ground up. In a small example, when we made the Waiting For Me music video, it's a female-led team, as well as an all gender nonconforming trans or female identifying cast. And so by the very nature of how the product is made, it is adhering to the values that I'm talking about in the art itself. That is something that I'm interested in. That's radical change. That's embodying the world we wish we lived in. And so that's how I think we have to start thinking about these things. Instead of us collaborating with the oppressor, we have to collaborate with those who don't contribute to the oppression of anybody else.
Well, I did go through the credits of your song. It's true, your cast is diverse. Your team is diverse. Your music videos are so beautiful. They're spectacular. They're a treat to watch, and they're so wonderfully produced. Technical excellence. How do you manage that? You've worked with very big artists in the past as well. Did that help with making sure that your music and videos were of a certain standard?
That's a great point. I used to work at a record label, a major record label called Interscope Records, for 2 years. And so, yes, I was seeing the top caliber of artists at their finest and learning how the top caliber of artists do things. I used to tour drumming for an artist named MIA, who's a Sri Lankan British singer, activist, musician, gifted person. I've worked with Kehlani. I just got off tour with Oprah Winfrey at the top of 2020 before the pandemic started. So you're absolutely right. Being exposed to people doing things at the top level of their craft does inspire me to do the same in my own work. You're absolutely right.
And tell me the kind of freedom that your work provides you, the kind of music that you work with, electronic music. There's so much you can do with that. In fact, I was looking up some of your talks, and it was kind of liberating the way you make music. Is that the right word?
Yes, I love that question. I think I use a mixture of my real vocals, my real drums, my real percussion, but then I mix it with electronically produced sounds because when I am at my desk and using Ableton to make these different sounds that you hear, whether I'm reversing a vocal or I'm, putting a different glitch effect on a certain sound, these are freedoms that you're able to paint when you're manipulating sound. That keeps it interesting. That makes the listener say, wow, I've never heard that before. That's a really pretty synthesizer. That's a really pretty vocal effect. I love the freedom of being able to make electronic music, even if it sounds like, pop or it sounds like alternative music or what have you, because we're making sounds that people have never heard before that still sound hopeful and joyful and pretty.
Well, all the statements that you make are so powerful because they are so precisely worded and succinct. Does your academic background help you reach people better?
I think having an academic background allows me to form sentences in a way that is palatable to the mainstream. And I think that is an asset. I think I also feel self-aware though that education can actually limit you because it's teaching you how to participate in the society as it already exists. It's not really teaching you how to question things, how to unpack problematic norms. In fact, many educational environments, whether it's from Harvard Business School, Georgetown, where I went, St. Anne's, American School of Bombay, Chapin, all of these different very prestigious educations that I've been lucky enough to be given. Of course, I'm grateful for them. And I also acknowledge that there needs to be space to unpack, to critically think, to more closely examine, to ask, why are we learning things this way? Can it be done better? Can it be done differently? Whose values are these serving? Harvard Business School, even though once again, I'm deeply grateful for that education because I know so many people would love to have that education. It is the breeding ground of the capitalist patriarchy. It is reaffirming norms as we know it instead of saying, are we rewarding emotionally intelligent people? Are we rewarding people who are thoughtful and peacekeeping? No, we're rewarding the most aggressive. We're rewarding the loudest person in the room. And these are norms and standards that I fundamentally disagree with.
And I think you speak that through your songs. Waiting for Me is a great example of how you channel that and put it out there.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, that's the intention.
What are the other frontiers that you wish to conquer? I feel like you've already come a long way in such a short span of time. Where else do you want to take your music and your work?
I want to push boundaries with my music. The next album that I'm working on, Vibrations, especially because it was written in quarantine where I've had a lot of time to sit with my own emotions, is a lot more vulnerable. I think that vulnerability is something that we see as a feminine quality, for better or for worse, even though I do believe that no matter what gender identity you are, being honest about what you're going through and having someone heal with you is actually one of the most rewarding things that we deprive our society of. If we had the space to discuss mental health, if we had the space to discuss our own emotions, the positive emotions and the dark emotions, we would heal them instead of allowing us to just be rude to each other or scream and shout at each other or put each other down or try to control each other. So many of these toxic behaviors are a result of unhealed wounds that we've experienced through childhood, through life, through trauma, etc. So in this album, I would say not only is the music a little bit more pushing boundaries, but the themes are pushing boundaries because I do think it is part of a feminist agenda to allow all of us to step into the vulnerability of our emotions.
In lockdown, everyone has learned so many new skills. What skills have you learned with regards to music and with regards to your work? Or maybe even apart from that, tell me.
I'm just laughing. The first month I really tried to get better at cooking out of necessity, and then it just fell apart by May, and then I just started ordering all my meals, which is so problematic. Like, I actually don't want to be that person. And I actually do love when I'm making really clean food for myself. But it was just funny to kind of see that took time. That was difficult. I also think that another thing that I worked on was just more running, more boxing, more fitness. That made me feel really good. In my home, I set up a little home gym that felt good. So I would say those are the two main things: trying to get better at cooking, and then of course trying to be always more athletic.
Thank you for
Thank you
everything
so
that you
much.
do, Kiran.